Everyone is talking about taking consent under the DPDPA, and very few are asking the harder question, the real question. And the real question is, what happens when the consent is withdrawn? Because withdrawal of consent is not just a legal issue, it's an operational, is a disruption issue. The moment a user withdraws his consent, companies suddenly have to answer certain questions, certain queries they are not prepared for. What happens to the historical data that they have collected? What happens to the ongoing contracts that are dependent on the data? And what happens to analytics data sets, AI models, and internal reports which are built using this data? Now let's take an example. A customer is withdrawing consent from a fintech platform. The company has transaction history, behavior analytics, fraud detection models, and archived communications about the data principal who is seeking to withdraw his consent. This is where the real pressure starts for the in-house counsels, because their business teams would want continuity, their tech teams would say the deletion is difficult, and the analytics teams would say that the data sets are already integrated. And the law does not clearly explain how far the withdrawal effect actually goes. Here's the mistake that most organizations are making. They treat consent as a they treat consent withdrawal as a front-end user action, while as it is a downstream data governance issue. Because once the data enters the backups, models, reports, third-party systems, or aggregated data sets, the removal becomes operationally complex. And if your organization cannot clearly explain what stops processing, what gets retained, and what survives legally after withdrawal, your compliance position is very difficult to defend. Now, what sophisticated organizations are doing at this stage? They're mapping data cycle flows, they're separating operational and analytical data sets, and they are defining the retention logic before withdrawal requests start arriving. Because under the DPDPA, the consent management is not just about collection of data, it is about whether your systems can actually respond when a consent request comes in. If your organization is collecting personal data at a scale, this is a governance issue which you cannot postpone.